I'm Issa Reagan, 36, a commercial banker in Ohio. On my daughter's FTH birthday, my dad stood up in front of our whole family and said she wasn't a real grandchild. And my mom didn't say one word. Maya was holding a piece of cake. She looked up at me with frosting on her thumb, and she asked me a question number 5-year-old should ever have to ask. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I lifted her onto my hip. I drove us home. And Monday morning, I filed papers my dad had signed 4 years earlier. Papers he thought were a favor, but were actually a contract. By the end of that week, my parents called me 37 times. Not one of those calls was to apologize to Maya. Before I take you into that Saturday, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, let me take you back to the morning of Maya's FTH birthday. Maya was up at 6, already dressed in a pink carnation dress she'd picked out at Target. Paper crown on her head, plastic tiara clipped behind her left ear for backup. "Mom, is today my whole day? Your whole day, sweetheart?" From sunrise to bedtime. Daniel was ironing his blue button-down at the kitchen island. I packed the gift, a pink bike, $247. Ribbons I tied wrong twice. I'd picked up the cake from Abigail's the night before. 3 tiers, buttercream, Maya in gold letters on top. $1.85 and worth every cent. Maya padded into the kitchen in her socks. "Mom's Grammy making a cake too?" I paused. 1/2 second, maybe less. "Grammy has her own thing planned, honey. Ours is special." She accepted that the way 5-year-olds accept everything with a shrug and a question about whether her bike had a bell. Daniel caught my eye over the ironing board. He didn't say anything. He's good at that. We loaded the car by 8:30. Cake in the passenger seat, balanced on a folded towel. Gift wedged in the back next to the cooler of lemonade I'd made from scratch because Maya liked watching me squeeze the lemons. Mia buckled herself in and started singing happy birthday to herself in the back seat. Daniel drove. I watched the field slide by. Corn stubble, red barn, the sign for Marion County that still had a dent from a deer strike in 2019. When we turned onto my parents' street, I saw Derek's silver F-150 already in the driveway an hour early. My brother never came early to anything. Something in my chest did a small strange thing, a single hard knock, and my hand tightened around the cake box. The Colonial sat on 2 acres off Township Road 94, 2 stories, white siding, black shutters. The row of pines Dad planted in 1987 still lined the driveway. He'd planted them the year I was born, I thought while Daniel parked. This house almost wasn't theirs anymore. 4 years ago I kept it under their feet. Nobody mentioned that much these days. Mom opened the screen door before we reached the porch. "There's my girl." She wrapped both arms around me, tight, warm. She smelled like the vanilla lotion she'd used my whole life. Then she stepped back, looked down at Maya, and rested her hand on Maya's shoulder. A quick pat, no hug. Maya looked up at her, waiting. "Hi, Grammy." "Hi, sweetie. Cake looks nice." That was it. Mom turned and led us inside. Dad wasn't in the foyer. Wasn't in the kitchen. I could hear ESPN from the living room. College football preview full volume. Derek and his 2 boys were on the couch. Tommy, 7, Ethan, 5, same as Maya. "Happy birthday, Maya," Derek said, eyes on the screen. He didn't turn his head. I set the cake on the dining room table. Mom fussed with a stack of napkins. I glanced at the bookshelf by the window and I saw it. A thick manila folder corner of a blue binder clip showing Patricia Reagan. Estate documents typed on a white label. Mom followed my eyes. She moved fast for 66. She slid the folder off the shelf and into the cabinet drawer below, closed it with her hip. "Lemonade in the fridge, honey." "Yes, Mom." I didn't ask, but I noticed. And some part of me, quiet and steady, began to take inventory of the room. 4 years ago, Maya's adoption finalized on a Tuesday. Dad called me on Friday. The bank's going to take the house, Isa. Hilux in default. We've got 30 days. I was standing in Maya's nursery at the time, folding a tiny pink onesie. I had a 4-month-old asleep in my arms and a new social security card taped to the fridge. I stopped folding. How much? $180,000 for a house. Grown up in on land my grandfather farmed under a roof Dad had reshingled the summer I turned 12. I said I'd call him back. I called Brett Holloway. Brett was in my economics cohort at Ohio State. He'd gone to law school. He'd opened a small estate practice in Columbus. He was a good man and he did not cut corners. You can do it, he told me, but you're not going to do it the way your dad wants. You're going to do it the way a banker would. Brett drafted a promissory note. $180,000 3.5% interest quarterly payments balloon payment. At the end of year 5, he drafted a deed of trust that recorded the house as collateral. Both documents carried a standard acceleration clause. 2 missed quarterly payments and the full balance came due. My parents signed at a notary's office in Marion. Mrs. Jenkins from their church stamped the seal. Mom cried a little. Dad squeezed my shoulder. You saved us, kid. I won't forget this. I wired the funds to the bank that afternoon. I never asked for a payment schedule. They sent checks for 3 years. The last 2 quarters, I noticed nothing came. I planned to mention it after Maya's birthday. By noon, 14 adults and 6 kids filled the backyard. The Hendersons from next door, Aunt Ruth and Uncle Paul, 2 of Dad's buddies from the Elks Lodge, Pastor Daniels from First Methodist in his weekend khakis. The gift table sat on the deck. Tommy and Ethan had their own separate pile. Dad's pile wrapped in blue paper with rocket ships. I watched Dad hand Tommy a box, heavy, expensive. Open it, son. That's for you and your brother. Lego Star Destroyer set. I'd priced it once. $4.99. Beside it, a signed baseball on a little wooden stand. Indians era. Dad's handwriting on the card. For the future Reagan men, Grandpa loves you. Maya walked past, trailing ribbon. Dad stood up and walked inside for another beer. Mom came over to Maya. She held out a small white envelope. Here you go, sweetie. From Grammy and Grandpa. Maya opened it. A single $20 bill. No card, no note. Thank you, Grammy. Maya tucked it into the pocket of her carnation dress and ran back to the trampoline. Aunt Ruth sidled up beside me with a plastic cup of sweet tea. She lowered her voice. Your dad's still having a hard time with the adoption thing, hun. Give him time. It's been almost 5 years, Ruth. I know. She squeezed my elbow and walked away. I heard Derek talking to the Hendersons by the grill. Yeah, Dad's already decided. House goes to our boys. Keep it in the name, you know. Tradition. Mr. Henderson nodded the way men nod when they don't want to get involved. I stood very still by the cake table. I watched Mom carry out paper plates. I counted the plastic forks. I waited for my father to come back. 3:15 Maya stood at the head of the picnic table, hands clasped behind her back, the way she practiced in the mirror. 5 candles, 3 tiers of buttercream. Daniel had the camcorder up on his shoulder, the red light steady. I lit the last candle. I stepped back. Everybody ready? I started to sing. Happy birthday to Dad set his beer down hard glass on wood loud enough to cut me off. He stood up from the folding chair, wine glass in his hand. He switched red now. He cleared his throat the way he did before town hall speeches. I want to say something before we do the cake because the will's coming up and I want everyone clear. The yard went quiet. Pastor Daniels looked at his shoes. A real grandchild, Dad said, is one that carries your blood. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked, he pointed. Not at Maya near her. Close enough. That one's not a real grandchild. Only Derek's boys are in the will. I want everybody to hear me say it once so nobody's surprised later. Mom looked down at the tablecloth. Her hand was folded flat against the checkered vinyl. She didn't look up. Derek took a slow pull from his beer. Aunt Ruth's mouth fell open. She started to speak. Uncle Paul put a hand on her wrist. Pastor Daniels didn't move. Maya lifted the long lighter match I'd left beside her plate. She held it up to me, wick still glowing. Mom, can I blow it out? Her voice was clear. Her little hand was steady. I bent down next to her. I wrapped my hand around hers. Together, we blew out the candles. I did not look at my father. If I had, I would not have stayed quiet. I cut the cake. I started with Maya's slice, corner piece, extra frosting rose. I plated it and handed it to her with a pink paper fork. Happy birthday, sweet girl. Thanks, Mom. She took her plate and went to sit next to Aunt Ruth at the little kids' table. Ruth smoothed Mia's hair. Ruth's eyes were wet. I cut the next slice. I offered it to Mrs. Henderson. She took it with both hands like I'd handed her a live coal. Somewhere in the back of my head, a sentence I'd almost forgotten moved forward. Brett 4 years ago in his office. This loan protects them. It also gives you options if you ever need them. I hadn't needed them. I'd forgotten the sentence was there. It was there now. Aunt Ruth appeared at my elbow. Honey, are you okay? I smiled at her. I made it reach my eyes. I'm fine, Aunt Ruth. Have some cake. I pulled out my phone. I typed to Daniel under the table. 15 minutes. We leave. Quiet. No scene. He read it. He looked up at me from across the yard. He gave a single nod. I wrapped half the cake in foil for Maya to take home. I thanked Mom for hosting. I gathered the lemonade cooler. I gathered the gift bag with the tissue paper. Mom caught my sleeve at the screen door. Honey, don't be mad. Your father, that's just how he is. You know that. I looked at my mother. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. I spoke quietly so Maya couldn't hear. I'm not mad, Mom. I understand exactly what just happened. Her fingers loosened. I carried my daughter to the car. I understood that was the dangerous thing for them. We made it 3 miles before she asked. Daniel drove country road. Corn on both sides. Maya in the booster seat. Foil plate of cake on her lap. Mom, yes, Bug. Am I not a real grandchild? Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. He didn't say anything. He pulled onto the shoulder and eased the car to a stop. Gravel crunched. He turned off the engine. I unbuckled. I turned around in my seat. Maya's brown eyes were big and steady on mine. Maya Rose Reagan, look at me. Okay, you are a real daughter of your dad, of me. You are a real grandchild. Grandpa Richard doesn't understand that yet. That's about him. It is not about you. Why doesn't he understand? Because he's decided not to. Honey, that's a choice he's making. It's not a true thing about you. Maya thought about that the way she thinks. Slow. Serious. Fork paused halfway to her mouth. So he's wrong. He's wrong. Okay. She took a bite of her cake. She offered me the next forkful. I leaned forward and ate it from her hand. Daniel reached over and covered my hand where it rested on the gear shift. He didn't squeeze, he just held it. What are you going to do? He said. I watched the corn move in the wind for a few seconds. I thought about the paperwork I had scanned into a folder on my laptop. I thought about Brett. Do you remember Brett Holloway? Yeah, I'm calling him tomorrow. Daniel nodded once. He started the engine. As we pulled back onto the road, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. Mom's name. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 10 seconds later, it started ringing again. I turned the phone face down. Maya fell asleep at 8:30, still in her carnation dress. I carried her upstairs. Daniel pulled off her shoes. We left her star nightlight on because she liked the quiet hum it. I went down to the kitchen. I poured a small glass of bourbon. I opened my laptop, folder, Family Loan 2020. I named it plainly the way I name everything at work. I hadn't opened it in over a year. The promissory note, 4 pages, both signatures, Richard Reagan, Patricia Reagan. Steady and clear on page 4. My signature below theirs, Mrs. Jenkins' notary seal stamped beside us. The deed of trust recorded with Marion County, April 2021. File number printed at the top. Payment log. A spreadsheet I kept automatically. Each quarterly wire posted the day it arrived. Q3 last year, blank. Q4 last year, blank. 2 consecutive missed payments. I read Section 7. In the event of any payment default continuing for more than 60 days or of 2 consecutive missed quarterly installments, the lender may at her sole option declare the entire unpaid principal balance and accrued interest immediately due and payable with a 90-day statutory cure period before enforcement of the security instrument. Standard language. I'd read 100 notes like this at work. I opened my email. I wrote to Brett. Brett, coffee Sunday morning 8 a.m. Your spa family matter have signed docs. Isa, I sent it. It was 10:47 p.m. He replied in 4 minutes. Sunday 8. Bring the folder. I closed the email. I scrolled back through the folder one more time. The appraisal was still there, buried at the bottom. Done as signing. $415,000 as of April 2021. Higher now probably. I closed the laptop. Monday. I just needed to get to Monday. Brett picked the coffee shop on Route 23 because he liked their egg sandwiches and because nobody from either of our families ever drove that far north on a Sunday. He was already in the back booth when I got there. Manila folder in front of him, reading glasses on. Isa. Hey Brett. He slid a cup of black coffee toward me. He waited for me to sit. I told him in 4 sentences. Birthday cake. What Dad said. What Mom didn't say. He didn't look surprised. He flipped open the folder. You've got everything on your end. Missed Q3, missed Q4, 60 plus days on both. That's a clean default. He drew a diagram on a napkin. He does this. He's a napkin guy. You have 3 options. 1. Extend them quietly. Write it off as family. 2. Send a 30-day cure notice. Gives them a chance to catch up the back interest. Keeps the note alive. 3. Full acceleration. 90-day cure under Ohio statute. After 90 days, I can file judicial foreclosure. Option 3. He looked at me over the top of his glasses. Isa, you sure? Ask me tomorrow. I'll say the same thing. Your dad will hire someone. Let him. This will get ugly in the family. It already is ugly. I'm just writing it down. He closed the folder. Okay, I'll draft the notice today. I'll send certified mail Monday morning. I nodded. My hand was a little unsteady around the coffee cup. Not from fear, but from the strange feeling of finally letting myself think clearly about a piece of paper I'd been holding for 4 years. Thanks, Brett. Don't thank me yet. Eat something. He pushed half his egg sandwich across the table toward me. I ate it. Sitting there in that booth with Brett's napkin diagram between us. I'll admit my hand shook a little around the coffee cup, not out of fear, out of relief. It was the first time in 4 years I'd let myself think clearly about the papers I'd been holding. If you're listening to this and thinking, don't do it. They're still your parents. I hear you. Tell me in the comments what you would have done. And if you've ever stood between kindness and justice, hit that like button so I know you're walking with me. Let's get back to the story. 9 o'clock Sunday night, she called for the 12th time in 30 hours. I was folding Maya's birthday clothes into the hamper. Daniel was in the living room with a book. The dishwasher was running. I answered, Mom. Oh honey, thank goodness. I've been so worried about what? A small silence, then a breath. About us? About, yesterday? Okay, what about yesterday? Your father didn't mean any harm. That's just how he talks. The next birthday will do better. I was thinking we could host for Christmas again. A little lunch, nothing fancy. Mom, what? Honey, when you were apologizing just now, did you say Maya's name even once? I listened to my mother breathe. You know what I meant. I'm asking what you said, not what you meant. Isa, don't be like this. I'm not being anyway, Mom. I'm asking a direct question. Did you say Maya's name? You're making this very hard. You had a moment yesterday. He stood up. He said she wasn't real. You could have said one sentence. Your father would have. I know what Dad would have done. I'm asking what you chose. I didn't choose anything. That's the same thing as choosing him. Mom, honey, go to bed. You're upset. I'm not upset. I'm very clear. Good night, Mom. Isa, good night. I hung up. I set the phone down gently on the dresser. I finished folding Maya's dress. I smoothed the pink carnation pattern flat. I put it in the top drawer. Downstairs, Daniel looked up from his book. Your mom? Yeah, she apologized. She never said Maya's name, not once in the whole call. He closed his book. Okay, then. My mother had been given a moment. She had used it to protect my father. Monday morning, Midland Valley Bank, 8th floor. I had a 9:30 with a manufacturing client renewing a line of credit. At 9:04, my phone lit up. Brett, certified mail dropped. Tracking 940550127762043144487. Expected delivery Wednesday. I read it. I set the phone face down on my desk. The document was attached. Notice of default and acceleration, 3 pages. Addressed to Richard and Patricia Reagan at their home address at the property that served as collateral. Full balance called $1,924,506. Cure period 90 days from receipt. Brett's signature on the bottom. I closed the attachment. I opened my calendar. My 9:30 client walked in. For the next 4 hours, I was a banker. I reviewed collateral valuations. I approved a credit increase. I declined another. I ate a turkey sandwich at my desk at 12:40. Nobody at work knew. There was no reason for them to know. My work and my family were separate rooms with separate doors. At 3, I drove to Maya's preschool for early pickup. Her art teacher handed me a construction paper card to Mom from Maya, inside a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Mom, Dad, Maya. The sun was a pink circle. Everybody was smiling. Maya climbed into her booster seat. Mom, I drew our family. I see that, honey. It's beautiful. I didn't draw Grandpa. I looked in the rearview mirror. Her face was calm. Matter of fact. That's okay, Bug. You can draw whoever you want. He said I'm not real. I know he did. You still drew the people who know you are. She considered that, nodded once, looked out the window. I drove home. Wednesday, I just had to get to Wednesday. My job was helping people understand paperwork. Today, I sent some to my parents. Sarah called me Wednesday afternoon at 3:12. She was on a break from her shift at Mary and General. I could hear the overhead page in the background. Isla. Mom Pat just called Derek crying. Sarah was my sister-in-law. She'd been separated from my brother for 6 months. The kind of separation where she kept the kids and he kept the truck. What did she say? That something came in the mail from a lawyer. That Dad ripped the envelope and then sat down on the kitchen floor. Isa, what did you do? I took a slow breath. Sarah, do you really want to know? Oh God, it's legal. It's clean. It's in response to something specific. The birthday? Yes. She was quiet for a few seconds. Good. You don't even know what it is yet. I was there 4 years ago, Isa. I was at the house when your dad told Derek you were cutting him a check. I was pouring coffee in that kitchen. You remember that? I remember your dad saying, and I quote, Isa is letting me borrow it. I'll square up with her later. Borrow, not gift. I heard it. My hand was very still on the steering wheel. I was parked outside the preschool, waiting for Maya to come out. Sarah, if it ever comes to a deposition, would you say that on record? Yes, without hesitation. Thank you, Isa. There's something else. Yeah, Derek owed Dad money too back then. Gambling debt. How much? About $55,000. Dad paid it off that same week with I assume your money. The parking lot was quiet. A school bus idled in the distance. Maya walked out of the doors with her teacher holding a paper turkey. Sarah, I'll call you back. I met Brett at his office that evening after Mia was asleep. Daniel stayed home. Brett pulled up the 2020 payoff record. He saved it. He saved everything. Isa, the Hellock payoff, the one your wire went toward, was $120,943. That's what First Heartland received. My wire was $180, correct? Where's the other $60? Brett turned the monitor, showed me the bank's payoff statement, stamped, dated, final. $60,000 never hit the mortgage. I called my dad's cell, straight to voicemail. I called the house, no answer. I texted Sarah, the 55, can you confirm how he paid it? She wrote back in 2 minutes. Derek told me Dad cashiered to check from his own account. Week of April 11th, 2021. The week you wired. I sat with that for a while. My father had asked me for $180,000 to save the house. He had used $120 to save the house. He had taken the remaining $60, cashed it out, and handed $55 of it to my brother to cover a sportsbook debt. He never told me. He had signed a promissory note for $180 and then used a third of it to bail out my brother. And he had come to Maya's birthday and announced in front of 14 people that my daughter wasn't real. Brett was watching me. Isa, you okay? I'm okay. Do you want to amend the notice? Add fraud in the inducement? No, you sure? The note is enough. We don't need more. Let the paper do its work. I stood up. I gathered my coat. I did not cry. Paper remembers longer than feelings do. I drove home. Daniel was awake. I told him everything. He held me for a while. Friday evening, 7:42. Dad called. I put the phone on speaker. Daniel was in the kitchen, silent, listening. Dad, Isa, what in God's name is this? You received the notice. I received a threat from a lawyer against your own father. You received a notice of default, which is what happens when 2 consecutive quarterly payments are missed on a note you signed. That note was a formality, you never meant to. The note is a legal instrument, you signed it in front of a notary. So did Mom. I am your father, you are also the borrower. Don't you use that tone with me, Dad. I'm using the only tone I have. I'm calm. I'm clear. I'm telling you what the document says. You tell that lawyer to drop this right now. The document speaks for itself. Section 7. 2 missed quarters acceleration 90-day cure. You have the same copy I do. I'll drag your name through every church in this county. I'd like to know first where the $60,000 went. Silence. Long silence. I counted it. 8 full seconds. What's 60,000? The Hellock only took 120. I wired 180. I have the receipt. The bank has the receipt. I'm asking you directly. What did you do with the other $60,000? Dad, that's none of your damn business. Dad, it's entirely my business. I lent it to you. Daniel's jaw was tight in the doorway. I shook my head at him. Let me, you ungrateful? I'm not ungrateful. I'm a secured creditor enforcing a standard acceleration clause. You've changed. I grew up, Dad. Good night. I hung up. Daniel exhaled. 8 seconds of silence, Daniel. I've never heard my father go 8 seconds without knowing what to say. Saturday morning, 9:30. The doorbell rang. I looked through the side window. Mom alone. No car I recognized. She'd borrowed the neighbor's Buick, raisin bread in her hands wrapped in a red dish towel. I opened the door. Isa, honey, come into the kitchen. Not the living room. Maya was in the living room with the iPad and a bowl of Cheerios. I walked Mom past the hallway, straight to the kitchen, and pointed at a stool. Sit. She sat. She put the raisin bread on the counter between us. She started to cry. You're taking our house. I'm not taking anything. The document is doing what the document does. Where are we supposed to live, Isa? Where? You have 90 days. You can list the house at 430 Market. There's enough to pay the note and buy a smaller place outright. Breck can connect you with a realtor who won't gouge you. You do this to your mother? I sat down opposite her. I kept my voice low. Mom, 2 weeks ago, you had a 5-year-old standing in front of a birthday cake with a lit candle. Your husband said she wasn't real. You could have said her name. You chose not to. You say I do this to my mother. I'm telling you, I'm doing paperwork. You did something worse that afternoon, and you did it to a child. Her mouth trembled. Your father is hard. My daughter is 5. She stood up. I don't know you anymore. Mom, I love you. I'm also a mother and my child was hurt in your backyard. Until you understand that the door is open, but it's only open this far. She left the raisin bread. She walked to the borrowed Buick. I threw the raisin bread in the trash. Maya doesn't like raisins. Mom never noticed that in 5 years. Aunt Ruth called Sunday afternoon. She was on her way home from the 11 o'clock service. Honey, the whole church is talking. I figured. Your father's been calling every attorney in the county. Half of them know me. Half of those have called me. What are they saying? Most of them told him his case is thin. One of them took a retainer anyway. Wade Caldwell, of course. Isa, do you really want to do this? Aunt Ruth, were you at Mia's birthday? I was. Did you hear what my father said? I heard. Then you know exactly what I'm doing and why. A long exhale on the line. I could picture her in her kitchen still in her church earrings. I'm not defending your father, honey. I want you to know that I'm not taking sides in this. I'm just telling you your mother is breaking. Breaking how? She came to a couch at Maya's birthday and drank a beer while Dad said she wasn't real. Yeah, I'm cold. Go home, Derek. He stood up. He walked to the top of the porch steps. You know what? Never mind. What? Nothing. Good night, Isa. He got in his truck. He drove away. Daniel came out with a glass of water. You okay? I'm not angry anymore. I'm just waiting. 15 more days. If you're still with me, I want you to know something. Across those 75 days, I didn't lose a single night of sleep. Not because I'm hard, because I trusted paper. I trusted the sentences I'd written down back when I still had kindness in my hands. You have papers like that too. Somewhere in your own life, leases, wills, agreements written on napkins. Keep them. Sign them well. If this story has helped you even a little, send it to one friend who needs to hear it. Let's walk into day 90 together. Day 89, 6 o'clock Wednesday evening. I was unloading the dishwasher. Mom called. I answered. Mom, Isa, tomorrow's the day. Yes. Is there anything at all that changes this? Mom, I want to ask you one question. Will you answer honestly? I'll try. On Maya's birthday, when Dad said she wasn't a real grandchild in your own heart, did you agree with him? The line went still. Honey, I'm asking you, Mom. Truthfully, did you somewhere in yourself agree with him? Breath. A long breath. I don't know anymore. Then that's your answer, Mom. Isa, I'm not angry. I'm just clear. A 5-year-old girl was standing next to a cake. You had a moment to say her name. You didn't because somewhere in yourself you weren't sure she counted. That is what I am responding to. Not with anger, with paperwork that was already in a drawer. Please, 1 more week. The statute doesn't give me 1 more week. Mom, I'm not making this up. 90 days is 90 days. Brett files tomorrow. If you and Dad want to sell voluntarily, you still have that option afterward. That's the kindest path left. Your father won't agree. Then that's his decision. Oh honey, Mom, I love you. Get some sleep. Tell Dad to get a real estate agent, not Derek's friend. Someone competent. I'll send Brett's referral tomorrow morning. I hung up. I finished unloading the dishwasher. I put the coffee mugs on the top shelf, handles facing right, the way my mother had taught me when I was 8. Daniel came in. Mom. Yeah, how'd it go? She had her last chance. She used it the same way she used the first one. I'm sorry, me too. I went upstairs. I watched Maya sleep for a few minutes. Day 90, Thursday morning, 9 o'clock sharp. Brett filed in the Moran County Court of Common Pleas. Judicial foreclosure complaint. Docket number assigned at 911. List pendants notice filed concurrently with the county recorder. Brett called me at 9:42. Is in. List pendants is recorded. The house is now legally encumbered. It cannot be sold, refinanced, or transferred without satisfying the note. How long until trial if it gets there? Ohio runs 6 to 8 months, but it won't get there. Settlement happens once the list pendants hits public record. It always does. Okay, Isa. Public record is public record. Anyone pulling title on that property from this moment forward will see it. Understood? At 11:30 that same morning, I heard this later from Aunt Ruth. Dad drove to Tri-County Community Bank in Marion. He sat down with a loan officer he'd known 20 years. He asked to refinance the house. The officer ran title. The list pendants appeared. The officer looked up. Richard, I can't help you today. Dad argued. The officer showed him the screen. Richard, go home. Get a lawyer. This is a judicial foreclosure complaint filed this morning. Nobody in this county is going to touch this file. Dad drove home. He sat in the driveway for a long time before going inside. That afternoon, a man Dad had worked with for 30 years, John Burkett, who runs the title company in Marion, called him as a courtesy. John had seen the filing come across his desk. Richard didn't want you to hear it from anyone else. Your daughter's name is on the list pendants as the secured party. I'm real sorry. Dad didn't answer. He hung up. I didn't post anything. I didn't tell anyone. The law told itself the way law does. Sunday, 3 days after the filing, Aunt Ruth called it. House meeting, your dad's living room. 2 o'clock. Come. Don't come alone, but come. Daniel came with me. Sarah was already there. Ruth, Uncle Paul, 2 of Dad's Elks Lodge friends, Jim and Ray. Pastor Daniel's in the armchair by the fireplace. 14 adults in that living room. If I counted myself, Dad stood by the mantel, red-faced coffee mug in his hand. My daughter, he said loud, is trying to take the house we worked for our whole lives. I let him finish 10 minutes. I let him get to the end. Ruth looked at me. Isa. I stood. I walked to the coffee table. I sat down a manila folder. I opened it. 3 documents clipped. I turned them so the room could see. 4 years ago, I lent my parents $180,000 to save this house. It was a loan, not a gift. The documents are here. Promissory note signed by Dad, Mom, and me in front of a notary, April 2021. Deed of trust recorded with Marion County. File number right here. And this, I slid the 3rd page forward, is the judicial foreclosure complaint. I filed Thursday morning after my parents missed 2 consecutive quarterly payments and let the 90-day cure period expire. I looked up. I'm not taking anything. The house is collateral on a loan. The loan is in default. I'm enforcing a contract my parents signed. That's what I'm doing, nothing else. Pastor Daniel stood. He walked over. He read each page carefully. He set them back on the table. Uncle Paul, Richard, did you sign this? Dad did not answer. Sarah, he signed it. I drove Patricia there. I was in the waiting room. The room went very still. Dad picked up the folder slow. His hand was shaking just enough that the pages rattled against each other. He flipped to page 4 of the promissory note. He saw his own signature. He saw Mom's signature under his. He saw the notary seal, Anna Jenkins, Marion County. The same woman he sat 2 pews behind every Sunday. He lowered himself into the wing-back chair, set the folder on his knee. Mom rushed over, put a hand on his shoulder. He shook her off. You knew about this, Richard. You knew. I signed it. Richard, I was with you that day. 12 seconds of silence. I counted them. Ruth spoke quiet. Pat, Isa gave you that money to keep this roof over your heads. You took it. Nobody's making up facts here. Dad looked up at me. His eyes were wet, furious. All this because of that girl. I didn't raise my voice. No, Dad, because of you. Because on Maya's birthday in this backyard in front of 14 people, you decided my 5-year-old daughter didn't deserve her name in your will. I'm not doing any of this because of Maya. I'm doing it because of a contract you signed and a choice you made. One goes with the other. Pastor Daniel stood up. He looked at my father. He looked at me. Richard, I'll be at the house Tuesday if you want to talk. He walked to the door. He put on his coat. He did not wait for a response. Ray and Jim followed him out within a minute. Uncle Paul pressed my shoulder on his way past. Mom stood very still in the center of the room, both hands folded in front of her. Dad stared at the folder on his knee. I collected my documents. I nodded at Sarah. We left. Sarah caught me at the car. Isa, hold up. Daniel took Maya's car seat from me. Maya was already buckled in the back, asleep, cheek flat against the window. Sarah pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket. Bank statement. Derek's checking account. April 2021. The exact withdrawal Dad made. Clear to Derek's book the next day. I printed it from the joint account before I filed for divorce. It's mine to share. Sarah, thank you. You might need it or you might not. Either way, you have it. How are you holding up? Divorce is done Tuesday. Custody's ours. Tommy and Ethan have been asking about Maya. Bring them any weekend. We'll do pizza. Yeah, we will. She paused. She looked at the house. Isa, one more thing. Yeah, your dad was going to change the will this morning. Ruth told me he called Caldwell at 7 a.m. wanting to cut Patricia out, punish her for being the co-signer. Caldwell told him he couldn't. Liz Pendence locks the house until the debt is paid. It was his leverage and it's gone. He has nothing to rewrite. I absorbed that. Thank you, Sarah. Really drive safe. I got in the car. I looked at Maya in the rearview mirror. Her face was loose in sleep, her mouth slightly open, a fleck of dried peanut butter at the corner of her lips. Daniel started the engine. We pulled out. The pine trees along the driveway were taller than I remembered from when I was a girl. What are you thinking? Daniel asked. That my parents didn't lose the house today. They lost the ability to pretend silence is the same as love. Yeah, let's go home. We drove out past the cornfields. The sky was turning that early November color, grayish with gold. Maya slept through the whole ride. 3 weeks after the meeting, Caldwell emailed Brett. Our clients agreed to list the property voluntarily. Settlement in lieu foreclosure. Please confirm terms. Brett called me. Isa, they folded. House goes on the market. Current comparable sales put it at $420. After commissions, closing costs, and your payoff, they'll net around $190. Enough for a 2-bedroom condo in the Moran area, paid cash with a small reserve. That's fine. I can still push for legal fees 8, maybe 10,000. No, you sure, Brett? I'm asking for the number in section 3. The principal and acred interest 19,246, not $1 more. Isa, they took your money. Their lawyer accused you in writing of manufacturing urgency around your daughter's adoption. You're entitled to, I know what I'm entitled to. I'm telling you what I'm collecting, the contract amount. I'm not in this to profit from my parents' bad year. I'm in this because the agreement they signed has to mean something. Full stop. Understood. I'll send the settlement papers. I hung up. Daniel was at the stove stirring a pot of chili. Maya was at the counter pushing crayons around a coloring book. Mom, yeah, Bug, is Grandpa coming to Thanksgiving? I set my phone down slowly. Probably not this year, honey. Is he mad at me? He's mad at himself. Sometimes grown-ups do that and aim it at the wrong person. Oh, she returned to her coloring. Purple cat, green grass, orange sun. Daniel stirred the chili. He didn't look up. You handled that well. I've been practicing. I walked over and kissed the top of Maya's head. Her hair smelled like the strawberry shampoo she'd picked out at Target. She leaned into me without looking up from her page. Mom showed up a Saturday afternoon in mid-November, alone, driving her own car this time, the little silver Camry she'd had for 10 years. I saw her through the front window. I opened the door before she knocked. Mom, Isa, she stepped inside. She put her arms around me. She held on too long. I let her, but I didn't hug back with the same force. My arms were loose at her sides. She stepped back. Her eyes were red. I know Maya's upstairs. I'm not asking to see her. I came to say one thing. Okay, I was a coward. I was a coward at the party. I was a coward every Christmas for 5 years when your father would leave the room the minute she walked in. I knew it each time. I chose him each time. I thought I was keeping the peace. I was keeping myself comfortable. I nodded once. Go on. I don't expect you to let me back in yet. I don't expect Maya to forgive anything. I'm telling you I know what I did and what I didn't do. I'm telling you in my own words, not his. Mom, yes, honey. When you're ready to say her name, her full name. Maya Rose Reagan. In front of Dad in the house he's sitting in. That's when you call me, okay? Until then the door is open, but just this much. I understand. She reached out. She touched my cheek with 2 fingers. She didn't try to hug me again. You're a good mother, Isa. I learned some of it from you. The good parts. She blinked. Her mouth trembled. She nodded and walked back to her car. I watched her back down the driveway. I closed the door carefully so Maya wouldn't wake up from her nap. Sarah's divorce finalized the following week. She got primary custody of Tommy and Ethan. Derek got every other weekend and 2 weekday dinners. Dad couldn't bail Derek out anymore. The money was tied up in the closing on the house. Pastor Daniels pulled Derek aside after Sunday service and told him the church's counseling fund would cover a gambling recovery program in Columbus. On one condition, Derek attend every week. Sign-in sheet, Derek attended. I got one text from him late on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks into the program. You were right about the money I owe you. I don't know how I pay it back yet, but I owe you. I read it. I didn't reply, not yet. The following Saturday, Sarah brought Tommy and Ethan over for pizza. Maya opened the door in her. Sock feet, you're my cousins. Tommy, 7 and serious. We know. Ethan, 5 and loud. Can we see your puzzles? They sat at our dining room table for 3 hours and did a 500-piece puzzle of a sheepdog. Maya taught Ethan how to sort the edges first. Tommy taught Maya how to cheat by looking at the box. At dinner, Tommy looked up from his plate at me. And Isa, Mom says we're blood. That's right, Tommy. Maya's your cousin. She's adopted, right? Right. So what? I laughed, a real one. The kind I hadn't done in months. That's exactly right, bud. So what? Ethan nodded seriously over his pizza crust. Later, when Sarah was loading the boys into the car, she caught my eye over the roof. Tommy asked a question this morning. He asked why Grandpa treats Maya different. I told him Grandpa was being silly about it, and it was wrong. He just said, "That's dumb, Mom. Kids sometimes see it first." Closing day, a Tuesday in mid-December. First snow still clinging to the parking lot outside the title company in Columbus. Brett and I sat on one side of a long conference table. Dad and Mom sat on the other. Caldwell was with them. Stiff suit, stiff jaw. Nobody spoke beyond the necessary sentences. We initialed 41 pages over the course of 40 minutes. The settlement statement, the warranty deed, the release of the deed of trust, the dismissal of the foreclosure action. Dad signed every page without looking up once. When the wire confirmation came through, $1,924,506 routing to the escrow account Brett had set up, the closing agent cleared her throat and said, "That completes the file." Dad stood. He gathered his copy of the papers. He walked to the door. He did not look at me. Mom stood. She gathered her papers. She walked around the table to my side. She put her hand on mine. Just her fingertips. "Isa, Mom, I'm still learning." "I'm going to keep learning." "Okay, Mom, I love you." "I know." "Mom, I love you too." That's why I'm not at your door yet. Keep learning. Call me when you're ready, she nodded. Her eyes were wet. She followed Dad out. Caldwell did not say anything. He shook Brett's hand once and left. In the parking lot, Brett clapped me on the shoulder. That's done, Isa. That's done. He walked to his car. I sat in mine for a full 10 minutes before starting the engine. I did not cry. I just breathed. In for 4, out for 6 again. The snow was falling in small, dry flakes. I thought about Maya at home, probably building a blankets fort with Daniel. I started the car and drove home. Thursday, I went into work early before the branch opened. I pulled up the new account interface on my desktop. I walked myself through the 529 education plan forms, the same forms I'd helped 100 clients open over the years. Beneficiary: Maya Rose Reagan. Date of birth: July 12, 2020. Account name: Maya Rose Reagan, daughter of ours. I funded it from the escrow account. Brett has set up the full $1,924,506. I added a memo in the internal notes for my own records. Returned principal for her to learn anything she wants. I hit submit. The confirmation number came back in green text. The account was live. I sat at my desk for a while looking at the screen. Maya wouldn't know about this for years. 13 years maybe. I'd tell her when she was 18, the week before she started college, if that's what she chose. Or trade school or art school or nothing at all for a year while she figured herself out. Whatever she picked, the money was hers, unconditional, no will, no gatekeeper, no real grandchild qualifier. I looked out the window. Ohio in December, bare trees, gray sky, a single red cardinal on a branch. My father had tried to decide which of his grandchildren counted. He'd used his will as the tool. He'd failed because his leverage had been borrowed from me in the first place. The money he'd used to decide was the money I now held, and I'd given it back not to him, but forward to the child he'd refused. That wasn't revenge. That was accounting. I closed the browser. I picked up my coffee. I went to my 9 o'clock meeting. At noon, I ate lunch at my desk and smiled a little. We moved Thanksgiving to our house that year. A small thing, a big thing. 11 people around the table. Daniel and me. Maya, Daniel's parents, Paul and Linda, who drove down from Kalamazoo in their old Subaru and brought a cherry pie. Sarah and Tommy and Ethan, Aunt Ruth, Uncle Paul, and Pastor Daniels, who Ruth had invited and who showed up in his one good cardigan with a bottle of sparkling cider. Mom had called the Tuesday before. Isa, I want to say Happy Thanksgiving to Maya on the phone. Just that, not asking for more. Okay, Mom. I handed Maya the phone. Hi, Grammy. Hi, Mara Rose. Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart. Maya smiled. Happy Thanksgiving, Grammy. We're having pie. That sounds nice, honey. Bye, Grammy. Bye, sweetie. Maya handed me the phone. She said my name, Mom. I know she did, Bug. I heard. On Thursday, we cooked for half the day. Maya peeled potatoes with Sarah at the kitchen counter. Tommy and Ethan chased each other around the living room with dish towels tied around their necks like capes. Linda rolled out biscuits with a rolling pin she'd brought from home. At dinner, Pastor Daniel said, Grace, Lord, we thank you for the family we were given and for the family we chose, and especially for the families we rebuilt piece by piece, when they needed to be rebuilt. He looked around the table. He paused at Ma's face and smiled. Amen. Amen, everyone said. Mia cleaned her plate. Ethan ate 3 rolls. Tommy asked for seconds of turkey. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table the way he had the day at the bank 12 years earlier when I told him I was ready to start a family no matter how it came to us. The candles on the table burned steady. Sunday night after Thanksgiving, after the leftovers were put away and the dishwasher was humming, I went upstairs. Maya was asleep. Star nightlight on, mouth slightly open, one hand tucked under her cheek. I sat down at the small desk in the hallway. I opened my laptop. I found the folder called Family Loan 2020. I right-clicked rename closed Maya's future fund. I clicked save. I closed the laptop. Daniel came up the stairs with 2 mugs of tea. He handed me one. He leaned against the door frame. You still angry? No, not anymore. I'm sad. But sad isn't the same as angry. Sad I can carry, yeah. I looked through the doorway at Maya, at the family tree still taped to her bedroom wall, at the roots I'd drawn thick and warm at the bottom of the page. I walked into her room. I leaned over her bed. I kissed the top of her head. She didn't stir. You are a real daughter, I whispered. You are a real granddaughter. You are ours. I closed her door gently. My father had tried to tell me which of my children counted. Paper I'd written on a kind day had told him no. That was the lesson I wanted to leave quietly in the drawer, where I keep the things I am sure of. If Maya's story has stayed with you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to put something in writing to protect your child? If you have, share it. Another mother out there needs to hear she isn't wrong for signing her name to protect her own. Hit like if you believe justice can come from discipline instead of anger. Subscribe for more stories about women who chose steady over loud. In the description below, I've linked 2 more stories like this one.